I've been collecting video games now for a long time.
2 years ago, I filmed a video detailing some of the rare and valuable games in my collection.
For insurance reasons.
But I never finished it due to the holidays and other important obligations.
Coloring dinosaurs is very relaxing. And this music, it's so sublime. I wonder who the composer is and what they're up to nowadays. Ooh.
Since then, weird things have happened in game collecting, like the explosion of prices of sealed games. We've had an $870,000 Legend of Zelda sale, a $1.5 million Super Mario 64, a $2 million Super Mario Bros., and more insane sales I once thought weren't possible. Of course, some video games were always worth big money, with some hitting the mainstream every now and then.
Like to sell a couple of Nintendo World Championship game cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think I need the cash more right now.
Yeah, sure you do, buddy. Nice shades, Maverick. But these were traditionally rare titles, not sealed versions of popular games that are stupidly common. But I'm certain that the sealed game collecting market was all legit with no funny business going on, right? Well, it turns out that some journalists, YouTubers, and dumb podcasters have detailed scummy and scammy behavior going on with market manipulators and opportunistic speculators who created a sealed video game market bubble.
We scooped the 9-2 for $600,000.
We bought this as an investment play.
This will be over $1 million someday. I'm ecstatic.
There's even a class action lawsuit happening against Wata Games, the most popular game grading service out there. In the past year or so, the sealed video game market has crashed, with some expensive games losing over 70% of their market value in less than a year. But I'm sure the speculators and investors are taking it well.
In 13.5.
Hello!
Who could have seen that coming? Nobody, except for longtime game collectors. But the actual rare and interesting games have mostly maintained their market value, or I've seen it increase in the past few years.
So why am I completing this video now, after all this time, and finally pricing out some of the games in my collection? Well, maybe I'll tell you that later.
Before I begin, I should note that the valuations you are about to see are based upon recently sold auction listings, sites like price charting, verified private sales, and my own personal appraisal in situations when there isn't much sales information. With that said, let's finally look at some of the rarest and most valuable games in my collection. I have a couple of honorable mentions of games I thought would be worth a lot more than what they are. First, some sealed TurboGrafx-16 games. In my research, I thought these would be more valuable, especially a famous title like Splatterhouse, but the speculators have yet to get their hooks into these, I suppose.
Isn't it weird that he's anti-seal? Like, why can't he just leave it alone? Why does he have to be against it?
Also, most of my complete in-box Game Boy Black and White titles aren't worth that much compared to how rare they are. Games like Universal Soldier and WCW Main Event are extremely hard to find in the box, but the last Main Event that was complete went for just $500 in an October 2022 eBay auction. If Game Boy was a more popular system to collect for, it would be worth well into the thousands. Another complete in-box Game Boy title, here is Mega Man 4. Being a Mega Man title and one that wasn't produced in great numbers, it's not a shock that this would go for several $100s complete in-box. I purchased this with the other Game Boy games you just saw, and several dozen more boxed ones, for an embarrassingly low price on Craigslist around 2010. This is perhaps the most coveted PC Engine CD title, Ginka Fuke Densetsu Sapphire, or Sapphire for short. It's a 2D shooter with pre-rendered polygonal graphics. It's very good, but it's tough to find, which is usually a mark of a title that will be expensive. But be sure to watch out for all the counterfeits out there. The rarest Sega Master System game in North America, James Buster Douglas Knockout Boxing. Yeah, this is the guy who beat Tyson. Released for the Sega Genesis as well, the Master System version was released when the console was just about dead in North America. Having the sometimes missing manual increases the price a fair bit. Flintstones, The Surprise at Dinosaur Peak is a solid and late NES game that wasn't made in large quantities, so it has risen in value tremendously over the past several years and has become a collector's showpiece. The label condition can really affect the price, and there are lots of repros out there. If you want to learn more about this platformer, check out the review I did years back. This could be the hardest to find complete in box North American NES game, the Family Fun Fitness Athletic World. This original version was only packed in with Bandai's Family Fun Fitness Pad, which itself did not sell well before Nintendo bought the rights and rebranded it as the Power Pad accessory, and Athletic World was repackaged and re-released separately. It's surprising that this isn't worth more, but most video game collectors are likely unaware that this earlier box variant exists. Panzer Dragoon Saga is the critically acclaimed RPG version of the popular shooter series, and one of the most sought-after Sega Saturn games. It is the second most expensive title in the North American library after Daytona USA Netlink Edition. Here's a plain old Gyromite complete in box. Or is it? Look closer. This is the extremely hard to find final print version, which is a 3-screw cart in a non-hang tab box. I came across this somewhere around 2006 in Jersey and never realized how difficult it was to find. Who doesn't love Bonk from the TurboGrafx? This CD version of Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure, adds CD audio tracks and minigames, but is largely the same game as the cue card version released the same year. Speaking of that version, here it is, Bonk 3, complete in box. All of these later TurboGrafx releases were not made in large amounts due to the console's waning life by then. Here's another Game Boy game I got in the same Craigslist lot as the Mega Man 4. This is a sealed Pokemon Gold, and if I had to gauge the condition, it would be around a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Pokemon collecting has exploded in the past few years, so the game prices have shot up. And of course, the sealed game speculators have also contributed to this.
Isn't it weird that he's anti-seal? Like, why can't he just leave it alone? Why does he have to be against it?
Let's head back to the TurboGrafx 16 and a CD shooter, Sid Mead's Terraforming. While the PC Engine version is readily available, a very low print run in North America guaranteed crazy collectors like me would pay out the nose for it decades later. In fact, I probably overpaid versus the market value at the time just so I could complete my TurboGrafx CD collection. Mr. Gimmick! This cute platformer is one of my all-time favorite NES games. It was never released in North America, and outside of the Famicom version in Japan, it was only available in PAL format in Scandinavian countries. Since it's tough to find and an amazing game to boot, expect to pay a lot for this one, especially if it's complete in box. Check out my old review sometime to learn more about this Sunsoft classic. What's this? A turbo game that is not a shooter? Yes, it's Legend of Hero Tonma, a magical action platformer that again was released in limited quantities in North America compared to its more ubiquitous PC Engine version. I got this in a Craigslist lot along with the boxed Bonk 3 you saw earlier back in 2010. Ah, memories. Donkey Kong Jr. Math, the only educational NES game that Nintendo published. It likely had a small print run and didn't sell well since, well, it's Donkey Kong Jr. Math. It's hard to find complete in box, so it goes for a decent amount, even in average condition. I luckily got this for a low price way before more NES collector nuts got into the hobby. Snatcher, the cult hit cyberpunk adventure game. It was released widely on Japanese platforms, but the North American Sega CD version saw a small print run. This one is worth more than the typical copy since it includes the elusive warranty registration card. Hey, I know it's dumb, but I don't make the rules. The market does. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out? Has Iron Mike knocked me silly? No, but he may have punched some speculators with money to burn. You see, when I originally shot this video, non-sealed, good condition, complete in-box copies with Tyson's letter were being sold for over $1,000 regularly, but this was probably due to the sealed copies being sold for tens of thousands of dollars. It's dropped back down to about a few hundred, so I kept this in the video just to reflect on how crazy sealed game speculation was, and still is, driven by buyers from other hobbies who aren't always knowledgeable about the games they're buying.
You have to get through all the characters, like Glassy Joe, is that his name, I think?
I think so.
Super Air Zonk, another TurboGrafx CD release with a low print run. Are you sensing a pattern? This is the very fun shooter sequel to Air Zonk, which was a standard turbo chip game. Recent sales of this North American version average out to this estimate, but you can always save a bit by buying the PC Engine version. This cartridge is synonymous with high-end NES game collecting. Little Samson. A late NES title release, this excellent platformer is sought after due to its lower print run and high quality, the perfect storm to create an expensive NES game. Having the manual, as I do here, nearly doubles the value. Here lies a complete original test market Nintendo Entertainment System. The first 100,000 or so of these were rolled out to New York City and the northern New Jersey area in the fall of 1985. But what is really coveted are the first print packing games of Gyromite and Duck Hunt. I have not seen what's inside this box in 10 years or so. Okay, getting the styrofoam out is a little more difficult than I remember. Ah, there they are. Let's get them into box protectors and take a look at them. Duck Hunt has obviously been opened, but it is in very good shape. The sticker seal is mostly gone, but it's a very nice condition box. An 8.5 condition first production, non-sealed test market copy like this sold on Heritage Auctions in August 2022 for nearly $3,000. Nuts. And here's Gyromite, which is an interesting specimen. It's in excellent shape as well, but the sticker is fully intact with the lid closed shut. If this was opened up ever, whoever did it managed to do so without somehow damaging the sticker and then closing it back shut. The back hang tab, however, has been knocked out with the peg space removed, but the intact sticker closing the front lid makes this intriguing. I cannot guarantee that this is sealed, but it is in great condition either way. This is tough to price. Sealed first production Gyromites have sold between $11,000 and $43,000 at auction, and an 8.0 complete in box copy sold for almost $1,900 in August of 2022. So I'll estimate what these two carts could be sold for together, and hopefully you don't crucify me. Did you know that there were adults-only titles released for the NES? Hot Slots, Bubble Bath Babes, and Peekaboo Poker were 3 titles published by Panesian and heavily speculated to have been carried in video rental stores. These are very rare and have always been some of the most expensive NES games, especially when complete. Yet another example of a later run TurboGrafx CD/Turbo Duo game, the number of Dynastic Hero copies produced was likely in the very low thousands. While the PC Engine version is more readily available and doesn't cost much, this North American port of Wonder Boy and Monster World will cost you a pretty penny, if you can find one. 6-in-1 by Myriad for the NES completionist. This game is identical to Caltron's 6-in-1. I may have done a video on that one. Reportedly, Texas-based Myriad bought at least several hundred 6-in-1 carts and then repackaged them with brand new boxes and manuals. However, they simply printed and placed simple, individually numbered stickers over the original Caltron labels. These are extremely difficult to find, and very few examples have boxes and cartridges with matching serial numbers, like mine does. If you've seen my old TurboGrafx Christmas video, you may be familiar with this one. This is Magical Chase, the most sought-after TurboGrafx 16 game. An excellent shooter, this was a late release, surprise surprise, that wasn't made in large quantities. This, combined with the gameplay quality and maybe the name, makes it highly sought after and valuable to collectors. A complete in-box Magical Chase can fetch several thousand, but even this one missing the box is still worth a pretty penny. I was lucky to get mine before most people knew what the TurboGrafx 16 even was. Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link is a very common game, but not so much when it's sealed. This is in pretty nice shape overall, with only a small part of the cellophane missing where the price tag was removed. Ones in similar condition have been sold for between $1,000 and $2,000, but it was worth a little more a year or two ago.
Isn't it weird these anti-seal?
What's this? Another TurboGrafx horizontal shooter starring a witch? You might have to cast a spell to find this North American version of Cotton. Like every other TurboGrafx CD game featured here, the PC Engine equivalent is available for a fraction of the price. The notorious Cheetah Men 2, the sequel to a game from the terrible unlicensed Action 52 NES multi-cart. In the mid-90s, 1,500 carton box sets were found in a Florida warehouse by collector Mike Etler, packaged, sealed up, and sold to other collectors. I pieced mine together by opening a beat-up sealed copy and pairing the contents with a very nice box I purchased separately. Cheetah Men 2 can sell for thousands of dollars, sealed or not. Stadium Events, the second and last NES title that was released for Bandai's Family Fun Fitness Pad. A very small amount of these were produced, with my personal estimate being that only 1,000 to 2,000 copies found their way to market. Nintendo, of course, would buy the rights, rename it World Class Track Meet, and pack it in with their rebranded Power Pad. The two games are almost identical, but one is worth a few bucks and one is worth a car. You can watch me delve into the mystery of this game in a video I produced.
The value!
So that wraps up this video about my rare and valuable games. I hope this humble brag was educational. Wait a minute. There's a couple other games that I should be talking about that are on the tip of my tongue. What could they be?
Here is the Nintendo World Championships NES game cart, used for the competition that was part of Nintendo's PowerFest 1990 tour. These carts have individually numbered labels, and at least 350 were produced according to the serial number on known copies. 90 of these were given to the competition finalists at Universal Studios Hollywood. The remaining carts either broke down, were lost, thrown out, taken by Nintendo employees, or somehow eventually found a home. There are roughly 80 of these carts still known to exist, with several being discovered still in the past few years. Mine here was traded into a local game store, number 205. NWC carts have exploded in price in the past few years, with the last two above average condition carts selling for $69,000 and $84,000 at auction, a high grade cart selling privately for $100,000, and another high grade at auction for a whopping $180,000. My gut tells me to trust the lower sales figures a bit more, so the price estimate of mine will be closer to those to be safe. Last but probably not least, the Nintendo World Championships Gold Cart. Make no mistake, this is the most sought after video game on planet Earth. The true holy grail amongst video game collectors. Likely created from cannibalized boards from numbered competition carts and Legend of Zelda cartridge shells, 26 were given away in a Nintendo Power Magazine contest held in late 1990. Only about half of the 26 are still verified to exist. My cart was purchased directly from one of the original contest winners, who didn't realize he owned something so incredibly rare and valuable until 20 years after he had won it as a child. I consider myself lucky that I own one of these, and I treasure it greatly. Now, the issue with pricing these is that they rarely come up for public sale. Private sales are hard to even verify. Historically, these were always worth much more than their gray counterparts. Being that there were about 6 times less gold carts versus gray, that could theoretically mean that the gold NWC cart could be worth several times what a gray cart would be worth due to its scarcity. It's difficult to know for sure since so few exist and sales almost never happen. However, I've been told by one collector that they think the gold NWC cart is worth at least $200,000. Because he may have been trying to buy it real cheap. And other experts I've spoken to think it's likely worth much more than that. Time will tell if one of these truly historical pieces will come for sale in a public auction to create what could potentially be a brutal bidding war. So here's my best guess at an appraisal price, about 4 to 5 times the estimated value of a gray NWC cart. Perhaps in the future, we'll see how accurate this prediction is.
There are more games in my collection worth a buck or two, but that's good enough for now. Now remember, my most expensive games are all in a bank vault, so don't get any bright ideas out there. Plus, I have some home security. I'll see you next time. That's right. I haven't told you why I decided to price out these games. Well, let's just say that investing and speculating in mass-produced consumer products like video games can be very risky and very dumb. And even someone like me can make a teeny, tiny error in judgment that could maybe put me into massive amounts of debt. Worthless piece of crap. Why didn't someone tell me that game wasn't rare? I shouldn't have listened to all those speculators. I'm not the N64 punk. I didn't know any better. Well, I guess I'll see you next time. Can somebody please pay my electricity bill for me? Please? I wonder who the composer is and what they're up to nowadays. Ha! I wonder who the composer is and what they're up to nowadays.